we will quickly continue the conversation on digital, and with a focus really, as people get seated, a focus really on what's it going to take to really achieve Africa's digital transformation. We've regained growth again across the continent, which is hugely exciting, but our biggest issue, as we all know, is productivity. If we look around the world, across all of our sectors, we have one of the least productive, so our sectors are some of the least productive around the world, and we think digital is a critical enabler to unlock that, right? So I'll start actually with you, Karan, and talk about, from the digital transformation perspective, why are you excited about Africa's potential?
Well, look, first of all, I can't not be excited about Africa's potential, having grown up in Kenya. And Mr. President, it's such an honor to be here today with you. It's near and dear to my heart. I have friends, brothers and sisters who I grew up with, who I have a lot of confidence and faith in and optimism, and I just see what they're doing. But look, just to step back from sort of a broader macro perspective, if you look at demographics alone, I don't need to tell this crowd that the future is Africa. Right. But particularly in the technology space, you look at the number of people who are coming online in Africa today. Another 300 million people are estimated to come online off of an admittedly base that is too small. But when you look at growth opportunities, my goodness, 300 million people in the developed markets is not going to happen. 300 million people in Africa is an enormous opportunity. So one, I would flag the number of people coming online. The second, artificial intelligence has challenges, but it offers unbelievable opportunities, we think, for Africa. Unbelievable, and we can talk a little bit about that if you'd like. And then the last thing I would say, and I give great credit to the Secretary General here, at a time when the rest of the world seems to be pulling back from integration, pulling back from trade, pulling back from globalization. In Africa, we see things moving in the opposite direction. We see more integration. We see more political will to work together. It's a remarkable thing, and kudos and congratulations on the free trade agreement. We're hoping to see that extend and grow into the digital space. So those are just a few of the reasons that at Google, we are really optimistic, really bullish, and deeply investing in the continent.
Perfect. And we'll come back to that, but given you mentioned the free trade, it's actually, as Karan said, we're hugely excited about the CFTA. We're very excited when it got ratified, the Secretariat is up and running. But as we're trying to figure out when is it going to start to change our lives, so we'd love to understand a bit more before we get into digital, where are we with implementation of the AfCFTA?
Well, thank you very much. And let me thank the organizers for inviting us again this year. We have 47 countries that have ratified the agreement establishing the AfCFTA. The market of, as Ambassador was saying, 1.3 billion people, which by the turn of this century will be a market of 16.2 trillion United States dollars. So a very, very significant market. The road to integrating that market is difficult, and it will take discipline. We have to put in place industrial development strategies, digital strategies to enable that market to be prosperous. We have the potential. I don't think we should any longer talk about the potential. We have to see the results of that potential. So we have started implementing the AfCFTA. The ministers of trade, the heads of states are engaged. Trading is happening. The goods are moving across borders, not as fast, of course, not as fast as we would like to see, but we have rules of origin, we have certificates of origin, we have an AfCFTA tariff book. All of the legal instruments that are required for the trade to happen are there. The pace has to be accelerated, of course. We all know that. We have to move much faster. But the big challenge is reversing disintegration and fragmentation of over 60 years. The African continent trades more with the rest of the world than with itself. Only 18% intra-Africa trade, smallness of national economies, 42 currencies, the lack of industrial base. All of these challenges will take time for us to overcome them. However, we know from the history of the European Union, probably the most competitive and successful integration model in the world, that it takes time. 72 years ago, the European Union started its integration project, and it is successful. So I think we have to be patient, at the same time accelerate the pace. We have to be patient in understanding that dismantling the fragmentation that was there for the last 60 years, it's going to take time. But the political will is there. Yeah. And that's the most important aspect. The political will is there, the legal commitment is there, and the determination is there to make sure that we implement this agreement.
Yeah. And I think digital, again, can be a critical enabler to accelerate the implementation, right? Especially when we talk about digital trade. We have 90 million MSMEs across the continent that will really help them trade amongst each other. So can you talk a bit about what you're doing from a digital perspective to improve trade?
Well, we are at the point of conclusion of the Digital Trade Protocol, which will be the first of its kind for our continent. It will address issues such as digital payments, movement of data across countries, the storage and processing of data. There is no reason why our continent cannot be as competitive as Dublin in being the centers of data management and processing. We have young Africans in Kigali, in Rwanda, in Kenya, in Johannesburg, in Lagos, who are at the cutting edge of digital innovation. But what has been missing is the legal framework to provide market access, digital markets, regulatory framework for them to have certainty and predictability of market. And so the protocol on digital trade will be the legal anchor that is required to provide the market access so that Google can invest more in technology in Africa. And so this protocol on digital trade, in my view, is one of the biggest opportunities that our continent is yet to see. And more importantly, not only from a point of view of big tech and data processing and data management, it has the potential to address the question of inclusivity and inclusion of young Africans. Really? So that they become part of the digital trade, the digital economy of Africa through the innovations that they are undertaking. The good thing, the good news, is that the base for innovation is already there. Mobile banking technologies have been there on the African continent for some time. Digital pharmaceutical technologies, digital medical technologies have been there for some time. Now what is required is to, as I said earlier, to provide that legal anchor for market access, to create opportunities, to enable our continent to be globally competitive in digitization.
Yeah. And then hopefully get Google to invest more. So let's come back to that, because you talked about the potential. Right. And I remember Lamido Sanusi always says, we don't eat potential, right? You can talk about it. So practically, what is Google doing today on the continent to really help us capture this digital opportunity?
So we like to think the answer is a lot. So let me start with what. So currently, Google's platforms, all of our tools, Google Search, Maps, YouTube, the tools that millions of people, we're proud to say, know, use, and benefit from, available free of charge in Africa, continue to grow in popularity. And we are innovating those tools. We are trying to make them more relevant to the people of Africa. So and artificial intelligence here, by the way, is going to be a game changer. So let me give you one example, just one example. Google Translate. Hopefully all of you know, use, benefit from Google Translate. Over the history of Google Translate, we first innovated in 2006 to last year, we had 109 languages in Google Translate. Last year alone, we added 24 new languages, and Google Translate enabled by artificial intelligence, because AI allows you to do it so much faster. 10 of those new languages are sub-Saharan African languages, Luganda as an example, for instance, that we would not be able to. So the internet becomes available, it becomes tangible and meaningful, your connectivity grows. So that's one example, innovating the existing products. The second, the previous panel talked about connectivity. I've got to tell you that from our vantage point, that is absolutely key, which is why Google has invested in a new high-speed, state-of-the-art fiber optic line, subsea cable, that's going to connect, that is connecting, it's just launched, connecting sub-Saharan Africa to Europe. It is going to increase the speed of connectivity 5 times in Nigeria, 3 times in South Africa. The rest of the continent is also going to benefit as we build takeoff lines, and it is going to reduce the cost of connectivity by 20%. So it's not something that one company can do alone, but we feel like we're trying to make a contribution in that space. And then the last thing that I will say is, it's got to be localized innovation. You know, we're still a 25-year-old company. We're learning. We're learning about continents like Sub-Saharan Africa. But we need to do that by having a presence in the continent, which is why we were so pleased to be able to launch our innovation center in Kenya. Thank you again, President Ruto, for your leadership there. And also on the west side of Africa, an AI center that's allowing us to do incredible things, innovating new products and tools and solutions in Africa for Africa. So it's for us, we just see such tremendous opportunity, provided that we're able to continue to work in partnership with everybody in this room and continue to grow.
And talk about partnerships. We know that to accomplish this, we need very strong collaboration between the private sector, of course, and the public sector. We have a number of public sector leaders here.
Yeah.
What is your advice, recommendations, suggestions to them to make sure we can really increase the impact of PPPs in the digital space in Africa?
Look, we're in the mode of exploring partnerships at every level. So think about it at the continent-wide level, multilateral level, at the national level, and then at the local level. So just give you a few examples of each. At the multilateral level, we are very proud today, this afternoon, to be signing an MOU with the African Development Bank, which is going to allow us to continue on the Equiano cable, to continue to grow its connectivity. And so we need to partner with institutions, multilateral other institutions. I know the AU also has been a terrific partner, particularly as we think about the evolution of policy. And of course, people like the Secretary General have been incredible partners as well. At the national level, it really is working with governments to come up with solutions that work in the country, for the country, and we've been doing that, including in the cloud services area, where we're significantly growing. New cloud region being announced in South Africa, for instance, that's going to allow us to work in partnership with big, small, medium-sized companies to be able to deliver world-class AI services. It's a bet on Africa, but we believe it's going to pay off. And then lastly, at a very local level, individuals have enormous creativity, and we see that every day in Africa. And so just one example, YouTube. If those of you have gone to YouTube today, the degree of popularity and following of our African creators on YouTube is extraordinary. And we think we can continue to invest in that. We've created a Black Creators Fund where we are funding hundreds of creators as they start small businesses. It can be a cooking channel, it can be a music channel and so forth, and be able to export, talking about exports, their products and services to the world. So large scale, all the way down to the small scale.
Awesome. And Your Excellency, for you as well, you need partnerships, right? And so what do you need from us? What do you need from the public sector? What do you need from the private sector to make sure we can achieve the impact of the CFTA?
Well, we have two types of partnerships. We have a partnership with the private sector, because we believe that the private sector is a co-pillar of implementation of the trade agreement. Governments don't trade. It is the private sector that trades. And we have identified a number of sectors: agriculture, pharmaceuticals, the automotive sector, where we are actively working with the private sector to identify opportunities for investment to enable the trade to happen. And the processing of our minerals, that's done by investment by the private sector to boost manufacturing. So this is an important pillar of our work. The second important partnership is with the development finance institutions, AFDB, Afreximbank. For example, with Afreximbank, last year we launched the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System. 42 currencies in Africa. The cost of currency convertibility annually is $5 billion. That means that $5 billion of competitiveness is forgone, of innovation is forgone, and millions of small and medium enterprises are left out of trade as a result of not being able to transact. And so what we did in this partnership with Afreximbank is to go to our heads of states in 2019 in Niamey, and we said to them, we have to address this specific challenge of the cost of trade in Africa. And our heads of state said, yes, tell us what tools do you need, and we will endorse that. And so today we have the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System, which is a digital platform enabling payments in local currency for trade. So if you are in Uganda and your counterparty is in Ghana, you now have the capability to trade in local currency, in Ugandan shillings. Your counterparty in Ghana will receive Ghanaian cedi. So we're completely circumventing the cost. And of course, the political economy implications of trading in a third currency. I will not name the currency. I think all of us know it. But this is a result of a very strong partnership which addresses inclusion, because we have more and more entrepreneurs, more and more young people, more and more SMEs that will be part of implementation of the AfCFTA. We're addressing the question of competitiveness and access to an expanded market on the continent. So these partnerships are critical. AFDB is a critical partner for supporting trade, investing in trade, supporting infrastructure. Our senior brother, when he comes, I'm sure, later today, he will tell us that they've invested over $45 billion in the last 5 years in trade supporting infrastructure. Similarly, Professor Orama will tell us that over the last, in the existence of the bank, they've invested about $25 billion in trade supporting infrastructure. So these partnerships are important. We don't have the balance sheet, they do. So we have to leverage. On their expertise and the partnerships that we've established with them to make sure that this agreement becomes a reality.
And final question for both of you as we close. I think we come to conferences and have a lot of discussions. Practically, how is my life going to change? Our lives going to change by next year, by the time we come back here next year, as a result of what Google would have done on the digital front for the continent, and as a result of what you're doing on the AfCFTA front? I'll start with you.
Well, look, first of all, I go back to where I started. We're fundamentally bullish. We're optimistic. We're seeing things happening both indigenously within the countries, the ecosystems themselves. We're seeing the regulatory and policy infrastructure being created. Look, I think from our vantage point, there are 4 things. These are not near-term initiatives, but these are going to play out over the course of the next year, 5 years, and so forth, that we would look for. One is continued investment and growth in the infrastructure. It needs to happen. It's what we've been talking about. It will be a public-private partnership. We're super proud of what we're doing, but we're going to be looking to partner more, including with the institutions that I mentioned. Second is human skilling. We need to continue to see growth in that area. We're very proud through our programs to have helped participate in the upskilling, digital upskilling of 7 million people throughout the continent, but that's a drop in the bucket. There's so many more opportunities there, and again, that's going to be a subject of partnership. The third area that we would love to see is government policies evolve in ways that allow that send the signal of receptivity. So cloud-first policies, for instance, e-government related solutions being adopted. And again, we're seeing some great examples. To call out again, the president in Kenya, this has been a terrific model that we've seen moving forward there. And then last but not least, there's the array of regulatory and other things, which is why the great work that the Secretary General has been doing to create alignment so that those borders, those barriers that physically exist but digitally exist as well are harmonized and allow for the creation truly of a single market that's going to allow companies like Google and others to double down on our investment.
And Your Excellency, how's the CFTA going to change our lives this
Well,
time next year?
I certainly hope that from the point of view of digital trade, that we continue to deploy digital tools for inclusivity of trade, make sure that millions and millions of Africans have access to the continental market using digital tools. And as I said earlier, I believe that the protocol on digital trade will be that enabler that we want to see accelerated in its implementation. Second, I believe that next year when we convene here again, we would have seen more trade flows within Africa, amongst African countries. We're working hard to make sure that that happens. I will give you a very interesting example. Uganda. Uganda has 2 billion liters of excess milk per year. There are countries on the continent that import milk from other parts of the world. And yet the market is there. So we have a lot of work to do to ensure that we have appropriately tailored import substitution strategies. Not to disconnect from the global economy, but to make sure that what Africa has, we trade in those products that we have. The good news is that over 40% of intra-Africa trade is manufactured goods. And so although the percentage, the aggregate percentage of intra-Africa trade is low, the manufactured goods component is over 40%, and that's a very good start. So next year, I hope when we have this conversation, I will tell you that trade flows in Africa have increased by a particular percentage, which is the objective of the AFCFTA.
And we'll hold you to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.